And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sherard Show. I am your host, Sherard, live on location at the Spill the Honey movement here in Malibu, California. We're going to be having a wonderful time tonight. Spill the Honey is a movement all about educating individuals about the Holocaust as well as the Civil Rights Movement. If you're not familiar about Spill the Honey, they're talking about, and we're going to be interviewing special individuals tonight about Spill the Honey, as well as watching a very, very informative video about Spill the Honey. You definitely don't want to miss this because we're going to have a lot of very special guests stopping by. As some of the names stopping by for the red carpet and being guests on the show is Dr. Clarence B. Jones. He was the personal attorney as well as the advisor for Dr. Martin Luther King. We're also going to have the Susan Herschel. She's a professor at Jewish Studies College. She's going to be stopping by on the Sherard Show. And then lastly, we're going to have Gossett Jr., the legendary actor of Hollywood, but he's also an activist. They're all also going to be giving their opinions from the Civil Rights Movement, as well as things that they have coming up and how to educate yourself on it. So I'm Sherard. You definitely don't want to miss our show and episode. So go ahead, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, buckle up. Stay tuned to Sherard Show on Facebook.com as well as at the Sherard Show. You don't want to miss this episode tonight. We'll be right back right after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I'm your host, Sherard, live on location at the Spill the Honey movement today. We are educating people about the Holocaust as well as the civil rights. And I have a legend to my right. This gentleman is the one that cast and produced he's a co-producer of tonight's affair. And
I'm not the co-producer of tonight's affair. I'm the assistant to Sherry. I'm the gentleman who invited Louis Gossett Jr. to meet Sherry and thus be in the movie.
And voila, here we have it tonight. Is that correct?
Pardon me?
And voila, this is how the magic starts tonight.
Right.
Now,
yeah,
they
I
call
was
you...
instrumental in bringing Louis Gossett Jr., who's an idol of mine and a personal friend. And I said, Louis, you got to meet Dr. Sherry Rogers, who's doing this amazing thing. I put them together, and now you have this amazing event.
It's amazing. I'm definitely looking forward to
There's
seeing...
a reason why.
Now, what is the reason why tonight?
Well, I was brought up in orphanages. I spent 14 years locked up in an orphanage for the crime of not having parents. And I met a man who became my father figure. He worked with Martin Luther King, an African-American by the name of Robert Mayhawk. In fact, you may have seen an HBO series called Show Me a Hero. And his character was portrayed by Brock Peters. And his name is Robert Mayhawk. So having a father figure who's an African-American, because I didn't have a real father, and then knowing how important, also being a Jew, I was compelled to do whatever I could to assist Dr. Sherry Rogers and bring Mr. Louis Gossett Jr. to Sherry Rogers, which culminated him being in the film.
That's some awesome work. Now, your name is the Memory Man. Now, tell everybody back home, why do you call you the Memory Man?
Well, I hold the world record. I've been performing as Memory Man. I created the comic book Memory Man. And as I performed over the last 40 years, I became known as Memory Man because I'm the guy on TV you see memorize everyone's name in the audience or a 50-digit number. If you go to memoryman.com, you'll see all the shows that I've done.
Now, what's the art of being able to memorize people's names just off of one time they're telling you?
Well, to be aware, to try to take the name and make it tangible, to look at the outstanding characteristic of the person's face and somehow put them together visually and call the person by their name as many times as you can. But most importantly, realize you can't remember everything and never be afraid to ask again.
That is all right. Now, we're expecting a wonderful night. I really appreciate the thing inviting me out tonight. I know you have a very busy night. Thanks for stopping by the Sherard Show today.
Thank you very much.
And take care, sir. And we're going to have...
Thank you for being here, doing all this.
We really appreciate you, sir. This is a wonderful evening. You just heard from the Memory Man. We're going to have more right after this on the Sherard Show. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I am your host, Sherard, live on location here in Malibu, California for Spill the Honey, the foundation movement that's bringing awareness to the Holocaust as well as to the Civil Rights Movement. I have a gentleman to my right. He is the president. I'm going to let you tell him about what he does, but he stopped by the Sherard Show, a legendary gentleman, Mr. Ken Donaldson. Welcome to the Sherard Show, sir. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to be here this evening. Now, tell a little bit, everybody back home, a little bit about what brought you out tonight.
Well, I'm the president and CEO of an organization called Black United Fund of Michigan Incorporated, better known as BUF of Michigan. We're a funding and resource center for nonprofits throughout the state of Michigan that's addressing a need in our community.
That's an awesome thing because, you know, you have a lot of non-for-profits, they seem to many times go out of business because they can't get the funding. So how would somebody be able to get funding for their non-for-profit? Not saying in maybe the Chicagoland area.
Well, we have Black United Funds of Michigan affiliates across the country, and we do have an affiliate in Chicago, and that's what makes our organization so special. We target startups and organizations that don't have a history, and we serve as an incubator to bring them in, provide funding for them, and we will nurture those organizations for a period of 3 years, and then they will rotate off to more traditional funding like United Way and some of the larger funding institutions.
Wow. Now, what constitutes a non-for-profit? I know it's kind of a foolish question, but what constitutes? A lot of people can't understand what is a non-for-profit. So tell everybody back home, what constitutes a non-for-profit?
Well, I'll give you my definition of a non-for-profit, and if you need something further, then we can go to the dictionary. My definition of a nonprofit is an organization whose mission is to serve the people and not to make a profit as far as a financial profit. So their goal is to raise money to address a concern, not to raise money to increase their revenue and to just save it. So the monies we raise, our goal is to give it all back.
Wow, that is an awesome thing. Now, where would someone be able to reach out to you? I know people are watching right now who want to say, man, I'd like to get this man's number because I have a non-for-profit, I need funding. Where would they be able to reach out to you?
The only thing, we're the Black United Fund of Michigan, so we service the state of Michigan. First thing they would have to do is they would need to see if there's a Black United Fund in their state. If they're a Michigan organization, they can contact our office or they can go on the website at bufmi.org. And we have an application process. We have special programs. Our programs is financial literacy, entrepreneur training. And as a matter of fact, this year, we plan to launch our Project Aviation, where we're going to expose inner city youth to the field of aviation.
Wow, what a field, man. They can be able to have their dreams literally take off, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Now, one last question before we get in there for tonight's affair. So now, spill the honey in the civil rights movement. Now, I know you probably weren't born during the civil rights movement, but what does that mean to you, honoring Black History Month in regards to the civil rights movement?
Well, Black History Month and the civil rights movement simply represents a time that we reflect on that there was an era where we didn't have the freedoms as regular human beings. And so when we looked at the history of the Jewish people and we looked at the history of African American as well, and then we saw similar struggles. And so we know our youth today, they may not have the education or the knowledge to know what these two ethnic groups have gone through to get to where they are today. My children right now, I have to teach them about the struggle. You know, they don't, their schools are not teaching it like it needs to be taught. So we have to make sure that they get that information to know that they're privileged to be able to have the freedoms that they have. And we had African American and Jewish people to lose their lives to get where we are today.
That is absolutely correct. And you know, the amazing thing about it, a lot of times youth feel that Martin Luther King Day is just a day off. They don't even know what it means.
You're right. And my son, bless his heart, because I sat him down and taught him, the school he attended didn't even celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. He wrote the principal a letter and explained to her why this school should participate. And they have celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday ever since he wrote that letter.
Wow, that's a powerful young man.
Oh, yeah.
That's a powerful young man. Mr. Donaldson, I hope we can have more with you later on this evening. In the meantime, thanks for stopping by the Sherard Show. This is Ken Donaldson. You definitely want to reach out to him. He's doing big things in the Midwest, and he stopped by the Sherard Show. We'll be right back right after this. And welcome back to the ladies and gentlemen to the Sherard Show. I'm your host, Sherard, live on location in Malibu, California. I have a legendary gentleman right to my right. This gentleman is standing by me is Dr. Jones. He was the lawyer as well as a personal advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King, and he stopped by the Sherard Show. Sir, welcome this evening.
So
How are you?
My pleasure.
And it's my pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Now, tell me a little bit about what brings you in to town and what brought you to the event tonight.
Well, what brings me here to town is that there is a film which is being sponsored by Lou Gossett's Racism Foundation and Dr. Sherilyn Rogers' Spill the Honey Foundation. And the subject of the film is to commemorate the historic alliance that developed and that occurred during the civil rights movement between the African American community and the Jewish community. And I wanted to be able to be a part of this because regrettably too many people, both African Americans of this generation and young white people, and of course Jews of this generation, really don't know the extent of the collaboration between the Jewish community and the African American community during the civil rights movement. And to put it in a political perspective, is that it probably would not have been possible for us to achieve the success in transforming America had it not been the support and participation of the Jewish community in America. And so this is what this film seeks to talk about.
It's an honor to have you out tonight, sir. So now, back in the 60s in the civil rights era, when you were out in full force, what was it like during that time period for those who weren't aware, or the history books not being able to explain it in depth? What was it like?
Well, I was not so much an activist participant on the front lines as an advisor, and working, of course, with the greatest man of the 20th century, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What it was like is to see a large number of people. You know, the civil rights movement of the 60s was principally a church-based movement. And so you had a number of Negro ministers of churches in the various southern states who came together actually formally in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Dr. King's leadership in order to wage a battle to end racial segregation. And what it was like, it was inspiring, it was challenging, and I have to be honest, as the time between when the events occurred and years later, I have a deeper appreciation for what occurred then than when I was actually participating.
Now, why would you say that, Dr. Jones? Some 47 years later from the death of Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, why do you have a great appreciation now?
Well, only because I'm looking back over the years at what happened then, and I have a greater sense of balance in terms of the magnitude of the contribution. And with respect to the subject matter of tonight's film, I have a really more accurate appreciation and measure of just how important to our success was the participation of Jews at that time in our movement.
Absolutely correct. Dr. Jones, now have you written any few books? Do you have any books or any material that the newbies or those who want to re-educate themselves can be able to pick up and check out?
Well, they can go online. Yes, I wrote a book I co-wrote a book in 2008 called What Would Martin Say, published by HarperCollins, and then another book in 2012, Behind the Dream, The Making of the Speech That Transformed the Nation. They can look at that, or they can go on the website, University of San Francisco website, and see me there, as well as on the Stanford University website at the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute. They will see my work there also. I'm currently a visiting professor at the University of San Francisco and a scholar in residence at Stanford University.
Dr. Jones, it was an honor for you to stop by the Sherard Show. Enjoy tonight, this evening. This is the legendary Dr. Jones stopping by the Sherard Show. We'll be right back right after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I am your host, Sherard, live on location in Malibu, California. For the Spill the Woods, this is the special event that's commemorating the Holocaust as well as the Civil Rights Movement. Now, always a regular on the show, my really good friend, Jerry Bell. We just covered his event at the HOME Supper Club in Beverly Hills. This man tore it up. This is the lead singer for the Daz Band. You know, whip it, baby, joystick. Just this man gets down. But he stopped by the Sherard Show because I'm unbeknownst to me, and he's here to kind of talk about what tonight's event or affair means to him. JB, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. You know, alive.
You know, you always start our interviews off with that, man, and that's great. Now, what do you have going on, JB? What brings you out tonight?
I'm here to support Lou Gossett. You know what I mean? And what he's doing and the film and, you know, that kind of thing.
Now, this is Black History Month. I know we were honoring legends of the Black history industry, but also just every day is Black History Month. But my thing is to you now. Were you around back in the '60s in the Civil Rights Movement?
Absolutely.
And so what was that time like for those who just don't have a clue what the Civil Rights Movement was all about?
They don't have a clue. They need to study. You know what I mean? It was crazy for us, man. You know, a lot of lynchings, a lot of, you're not allowed to go into the white restaurants and white bathrooms, and you can't use a white water fountain. And I used to go to jail all the time or get in fights behind that kind of shit because, I actually was one of those that went against the grain, So I was always in battle, and plus I was in the Nation at that time too.
The Nation of Islam?
Yes, sir, brother. Come on, man.
JB, I know, but back home. So now, what is your perspective on things now, some 47 years later?
Nothing's changed. Everything is swept under the rug. You know what I mean? Same old bullshit, only a different toilet that they putting it in. You know what I mean? But ain't nothing changed, man. Come on, the government's the same. They just switched the people up. Some got old and died off, but their children have come in and replaced them and doing the same old thing, and it's the same old thing that we're doing as a people. We're not standing as a united front to stop this, because most of our youth today is so out of whack of where they should be knowledge-wise, and most of them don't want to know. A lot of our people are like, well, I don't want to know that. Give me some weed, let me get a drink, or I'm gonna hang out at my girls, or some dumb shit. They're not into wanting to know that what we went through. Look at what they're going through now.
Right.
Getting shot up by the police and beat down, and the cops are jumping on the women and beating them, and killing old people as well as children. I mean, nothing's changed. And if you don't stand up and deal with it and battle it, then you're going to be a victim sooner or later. What happens if a family member becomes a victim of this situation? So.
JB got a lot going on. We're going to do a special series on Jerry Bell. This man is so knowledgeable about what's going on, and he also has a new album. You definitely want to check it out. But JB, thanks for stopping by the Sherard Show. You know I'm going to be at your next event.
Come on, man. If you don't, you got problems.
I know that. We appreciate JB. We're going to be right back with the iconic Lou Gossett Jr. right after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I am your host, Sherard, having a wonderful time in Malibu, California, for the Spill the Woods. This is the special event about the Holocaust as well as the Civil Rights Movement. And it's just so happened it's Black History Month. And I'm so excited because I have the iconic, legendary Lou Gossett Jr. right to my right. I've been a big fan of this gentleman since I was in diapers, and now he's standing right beside me. Mr. Gossett, welcome to the Sherard Show. How are you, sir?
All right. It's called Spill the Honey.
Oh, Spill the Honey. I stand corrected.
That's all right.
But Mr. Gossett, it's an honor to have you this evening. Now tell us a little bit about what the Civil Rights Movement means to you.
Well, the Civil Rights Movement was a place in history, and it created some very historical people. Clarence B. Jones is with us tonight, who wrote a great deal of Dr. King's speeches. But there was a whole bunch of those people marching. And they had to make an internal decision because they knew that there was going to be violence and some of them would die. And yet they made a decision to move forward.
That was pretty awesome.
And there's a kind of magic happens when you make that decision. The same magic was happening with Nelson Mandela, who decided when he came out of prison to smile. Same happened with Gandhi. So I have an example. At this particular age, there's no fear of doing anything, especially if it really is true in God's demands, to combine the thing that used to be close and history-making back in the 30s and 40s, but after the Depression, and the 50s and the 60s, back east, the way I was raised, between the blacks and the Jews. We can compare slavery and the Holocaust. And God saw fit for us to be in the World War II in the tank battalion, and we rescued them from Buchenwald to Dachau and Auschwitz. They sent them from running from the blacklist to Senator Estes Kefauver from Tennessee, sent them the intellectual cream of the crop. In actors, there's the John Garfields, the Morris Konofskys, a member named Gustav Bloomberg. They ran to New York to a sympathetic Board of Education member named William Jansen. And he sent them to Brooklyn and to Staten Island and to Long Island. And I had science professors and my third grade as my third grade teachers, and I grew up with their children. A society that came from that was before the cell phone, was the old ladies in the windows. There's a neighborhood rule. I'm going to tell your mama. And if my parents didn't get home in time, I'd go next door and have some gefilte fish, some corned beef and cabbage, some of that, depending on who was home. We didn't have much to play with, but a broomstick handle and a ball. And the girls had chalk and rope, and we were in seventh heaven.
Wow.
And there was no distinguished of color. It was an ideal, wonderful neighborhood, and it became a political renaissance that gave birth to the Sandy Koufaxes and the Barbara Streisands and Jackie Robinsons and myself and Lou Wasserman. And we became the standard on Broadway in sports. And then it was broken up because we were getting too good and too powerful. It's time to return. To start by example, that all cultures, we must do that again today. So the number one situation is not civil rights anymore. It's much more critical than that. It's the salvation of mankind. And number one on everybody's agenda, in order to solve it, is our number one job is to make sure that this planet returns to its pristine shape.
Wow.
The oceans that have to have fresh fish without chemicals, without diseases and plastic. We can restore the rainforests. The air's got to be clear. We've got to stop buying water out of bottles. We've done this to this planet, so we need to do that again.
Wow.
And that single act of us all cooperating in that area is called Spill the Honey. If we're doing anything else, we all may as well be in this 747 airplane, you know, and it's the 30,000 feet, and it's about to crash. And people decide to plane to fight over who's going to be in first class. That's what the headlines are telling me.
Wow. Now, Mr. Gossett, you know, as Martin Luther King Day comes and goes, and also in the history books, you know, it's not being taught like it used to be. You know, everything when I was growing up used to stop on Martin Luther King Day, the special holidays that represent Black history, as well as the Jewish holidays. We were educated on those. Now these kids walking down the street with their pants sagging down, they don't
That's
honor
our
those
job.
days.
That's our job. You know, I have my two granddaughters who sit next to each other texting one another. I take the phones away. They look at that like I took their left arm away. I said, that's your sister. Look at her and talk to her. You know, but it's a lesson. They really, you know, they might object, but they really appreciate us paying attention to that because the generations have been broken, and that's where you have the problem. We never broke our generations.
Wow.
And our neighborhoods have gotten bananas because we've broken our generations. What those kids are doing with their pants down and shooting those guns, it's like a baby in a high chair in a kitchen, you know, the food's on the table, the mom's on the phone too long. The food's going on the floor.
That's absolutely.
When are you going to stop me? Tell me what to do.
Wow. And you know the amazing thing about it, sir, is that, you know, like when I will never be upset about the spankings and the beatings I got from my neighbor, from my mom, my dad, and the teachers.
Well, my grandma told me one lie. She only lied to me once. You know what she said? It's going to hurt me more. It's going to hurt you. Remember that too,
I remember that.
They all know that.
I remember that. I could never understand it then. I still don't understand it
That was
now.
a lie, boy.
Well, Mr. Gossett, you know, one thing that's amazing, I'm so honored because, you know, my publicist will tell you this. I've been honoring legends of the music industry as well as legends in life, people that I've grown up listening to and watching on the big screen TV, such as the Stevie Wonders, the Impressions, the Jerry Butlers, the Gene
I was hanging out
Chandlers.
with Mr. Ritchie the other day at City Hall. Wow, boy, everything he wrote moved my life.
Lionel Richie.
He had me dancing on ceilings and in the streets. He had me saying hello.
Is it me you're looking
Oh,
for?
yes, it's me you're looking
But you know, I'll say
Ain't gonna
this.
go to the Bricks bar. They ain't gonna do that one.
Yeah, did you have a fro in the back in the 70s with the Commodore?
No.
No.
This has kind of been a long time. Had a little bit coming down the side. I was out there though.
But Mr. Gossett, now I put you in a class, and everybody who really watch great movies, I put you in a class with Sidney Poitier.
Hey, that's my man. That's my hero.
Because you are my hero as well, because I'm seeing you in your career started in the 50s, is that correct?
1953.
And so just being a black man in a film, a major film back then was absolutely unheard of, is that correct?
It was an event. But before that, I had seen James Edwards in Home of the Brave, and before that, I saw Canada Lee in Lifeboat, and those are the bunches that ran from the blacklist. Those particular people, Tallulah and all those guys. And before that, I saw Rex Ingram playing the genie. And before that, people didn't know that he was black, but he was the prince in Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And we've been going around for a while. And of course, then it's Oscar Michaud and Dorothy's sister Ruby and Hattie and Butterfly McQueen. We need to know.
Wow. Mr. Gossett, I will not take much more of your time, but I would love to have a more sit down and get some knowledge. This is history. This is wisdom right here. You're not going to get this in just a history book. You're talking wisdom right here. Mr. Gossett, thank you for stopping by the Sherard Show. God bless you too, sir.
Shabbat shalom, y'all.
Amen. Definitely stopping by the Sherard Show. This is the legendary Mr. Lou Gossett Jr. We really appreciate him stopping by the Sherard Show. I hope you all were paying attention. We're going to have more right after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sherard Show. I'm your host, Sherard, live on location in Malibu, California. We've been having an absolute fabulous time this evening. We had Lou Gossett Jr. stop by the show. We also had Dr. Clarence Jones, who is the activist as well as the attorney for the late Dr. Martin Luther King. And then we also had a few other wonderful guests to stop by the show that you're going to be able to see on my Facebook as well as on my YouTube channel, as well as on Bounce TV. But this young lady to my right, she stopped by the Sherard Show a couple years ago. We had an absolute fabulous time. She has been in the music scene for many, many years. She sang with the Al Green, with Ike Turner, Curtis Mayfield. You can name them. She's been with them. And she stopped by to enjoy the festivities tonight as well as to be a guest on the Sherard Show. Always wonderful to see you, Holly D. Maxwell. Welcome back. How are you, darling?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, 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 welcome.
You know, I still look at that clip on the show and you were a guest. She was our guest on the show. It was just absolutely fabulous time we had. I can't stop laughing every time I see it. Now, what have you been up to out here in Southern California?
Well, you know, I actually came out because my sister passed, okay? But I was coming out anyway because I needed a break from Chicago, Chirac. You
The
hear me?
killing and the cold, huh?
Guess what, boy? They done lost their mind back there. But I came out here actually to get some peace, to finish my book.
Your book. Now, what is your book about?
Well, my book is about when I was with Ike Turner, my life with Ike Turner, after I took Tina's place.
Wow, that is a lot of stuff there. So now, was it a tumultuous time? Was it a peaceful time? A little bit of both or what?
It was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful time. He was a wonderful man. He was giving, he was loving, and I mean, he was, what he used to tell me, Holly, I got more talent in my little baby finger than you got in your whole body.
No, really? Now, why would he say that to you?
Because of the fact that he could bring things out of you. He could bring, you know, coming from opera, I used to sing opera, see? And then I went into jazz, and then I went into pop, and then I went into show tunes. And then, of all things, I decided I'd go into rock and roll.
Now, what made you do that transition?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't lively enough. You know, jazz singers, they stand there and they, well, I got tired of being cool. You know, so I decided I wanted some energy. I wanted to shake up something and shake up the world. Yeah, that's really what I decided. And the truth is, when I was 14 years old, I saw Ike and Tina on TV, and I told my mom, Mama, that's what I need. And she said, yeah, baby, you know, she's giving me snow job, right? Then later on that same evening, I told her, she put on a Jimmy Smith record. I said, Mom, I'm gonna sing with him. She said, yeah, baby, because I was singing opera. She ain't paying no attention to me, you know? Anyway, I met both of them the same day, which was November the 3rd, 1977, and got hired by both of them the same day.
You're a bad woman, Holly. You're a bad woman, Holly. You're a bad woman. You know, it's so much that we have talked about on our show, and there's so many things you've done and been so busy with since then, I'm sure. And then, you know, with me, I'm still, you know, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know this, but she is the one that helped me start on my Honor and Legends of the music industry. She was my third guest. I had Jerry Butler on, Gene Chandler, and then it was this beautiful young lady that was on my show from there on out. So now I'm still Honor and Legends of the music industry. That was 3 years ago, but I'm still doing it because it's just been an awesome time having some of the biggest names on the Sherard Show.
And you know, I'm going to tell you something. I really tried to get Otis Clay before he passed away for you. But he was so busy ripping and running with that movie, take me to the river. But I want you to know he told me that as soon as he got through with that, he was coming.
Well, you know, and that's wonderful, Holly. But you know, I was talking to him on the phone for 2 hours,
Yes.
and then that next week he passed away.
Oh,
But
man.
for 2 hours, I was talking to him on the phone, and he really gave me some lifelong lessons. I feel I got what it was meant for the Lord for me to have from him.
Yeah.
But he was a great, great man, and
Yes, he is.
and he was on his way out here. He would have been out here this month, actually.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was supposed to meet him while I was out here, you know. But anyway, you know, we have so many artists, so many wonderful artists that we've lost, you know. And the way I feel about it is, y'all better love me now. Just love me now, because you know what? I feel like this. After I'm gone on, don't cry for me. Guess what? I want you to just swing on out of here, have a ball, have a party. Because, baby, I lived my life.
Tell him, Holly. You
know
sure
what I'm
had.
saying?
You
I
sure.
lived my life. And that I have not done, I ain't going to miss it no way because I don't know nothing about it.
You know, Holly, you know, this lady is so much to you. Holly, all I got to say is now, when is your book going to be out? When are you going to have your book?
Well, as soon as I can finish it. You know, that, you know, I don't like to say things that I don't do. But I figured that at the end of this year, it should be out. Yeah.
And we're going to do a special, we're going to do a book review on you, and then also I'm going to do a special interview featuring you when you have your book out on your release. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Holly,
You know I love you.
oh, Holly, you're phenomenal. I love you dearly because it's wonderful to see her now here on the West Coast with me as well. And we want to thank her for stopping by the show. And we want to thank you all for allowing me to come into your living room this evening with the Spill the Honey, you know, wonderful event about, you know, keeping Black history alive through the Holocaust as well as with the Civil Rights Movement. We had some great guests. I want to thank Gossett Jr. for stopping by, Clarence B. Jones, Holly D. Maxwell, and all those wonderful people that stopped by the Sherard Show. So stay tuned next week when we're live from the Oscars. We're going to have some very, very special interviews. Denzel Washington is going to stop by, George Clooney, just to name a few that's going to be stopping by the show. You definitely don't want to miss that live at the Oscars next week. I'm Sherard. Have a wonderful evening. See you next week. God bless.